Before I begin, there are a few things that I want to make clear. I understand that Fanworks are not big studio projects. They're typically made by small teams or even one person, often without the experience or resources necessary to create a truly professional-looking final product. Instead, they're meant to be enjoyed by the fandom, and even then, only by those who would actively look for such things. So we're talking about a small project for a very particular crowd. As such, I'm a little hesitant to review this kind of stuff because in the event that I find something worth criticizing, I don't want it to look like I'm just picking on someone who doesn't really deserve it. However, I've gotten requests from quite a few people who are curious how I feel about everything from fanfiction to animated shorts, and with the two that I'm covering today, I actually wasn't all that aware of them until people started asking me to review them. Just keep in mind, this is a request and I can only share my honest opinion. So, since you brought this upon yourselves, let's get to the review. We'll start with Double Rainboom, a full-fledged half-hour episode. It begins with Twilight making a very complicated potion of her own design. Theoretically, it's supposed to enhance a pony's natural talent, but since it's an original creation and she has no idea if it will actually work, she wants to be very careful about testing it. However, Rainbow Dash, who's been watching the whole time, figures anything that might make her fly faster can only be good, and she drinks the whole thing while Twilight isn't looking. Super speed hijinks ensue, and eventually Rainbow pushes herself to perform the signature move from the title, which results in a hole being torn in reality. Traveling between dimensions, Rainbow emerges in the Powerpuff Girls universe, and before long she attracts some unwanted attention from the superhero team. They might be heroes, but they're still 5-year-old girls. And let's be honest, what little girl wouldn't want a real live flying talking pony? Dash really runs into trouble when her wings cramp up, the effects of the potion wearing off. Thankfully, she's rescued at the last minute by Pinkie Pie and her ability to break the fourth wall. And so it ends with Rainbow learning her lesson as everyone begins repairing the damage to Ponyville. Double Rainboom was promoted as the first ever full-length fan-animated episode with quality that would supposedly match the show, and apparently the director even submitted it as his senior project for art school. So let me start off by saying what worked. The story and the action were always very easy to follow, so in that sense it was directed well. At times the animation is very close to being show accurate, both for My Little Pony and Powerpuff Girls, and I even thought a few of the jokes were really funny, especially with Pinkie at the end. Unfortunately, that's the exception, not the rule. The thing is, when you make a cartoon to be funny, timing is absolutely crucial. The pacing and editing need to be really tight, and that often wasn't the case here. There were a lot of scenes that dragged on longer than they had to. There were also a lot of times, especially with Twilight at the beginning, when the characters would freak out for no reason other than to show off a different animation technique. But even then, it was ineffective because, again, the timing was off. And speaking of the characters freaking out, I really have to wonder what was going on with the voice actors. Now, I'll admit I'm one of the few people who thinks Rena-chan really doesn't sound anything like Twilight, but I have enjoyed her performances before. Here, though, her delivery is all over the place. It's like no one gave her any direction about how the scenes would play out. And it isn't just her. Nearly everyone has the same problem here. Hell, when Rainbow Dash gets the idea to perform the Double Rainboom, she actually says it wrong. Now, I understand that a lot of people have really enjoyed this cartoon, and that's fine. You don't need me to tell you if you already liked it. But personally, I can't give this a free pass, especially since it's being turned in as an art school project. That means you're trying to get a job in the industry, and you're holding this up as proof of your ability to handle a big budget show for a mainstream audience. And in that regard, I'm sorry. Your pacing is terrible, the animation, while impressive at times, is wildly inconsistent, many of the jokes don't work, and you even turned out a poor performance from an actress who's played the same character across the entire fandom. To paraphrase George Carlin, you make cartoons like old people fuck. Slow and sloppy. By comparison, let's take a look at another short animation called Snowdrop. This takes place 1,000 years ago, before Luna became Nightmare Moon. In this time, we're told that winter essentially exists to keep farmlands from being overused, ensuring that they'll continue to be fertile and produce crops the rest of the year. But it's a pretty brutal affair. It's cold, harsh, and no one really enjoys it. In a school in Cloudsdale, we see a classroom full of children who are especially miserable, not only from the cold, but because they all have to work on projects that they'll present to the princesses at a ceremony just before winter wrap-up commences. We also meet the title character, a blind Pegasus named Snowdrop. Her blindness and her shy, soft-spoken nature have led the other children to think of her as being useless. No one even wants to partner up with her for the assignment. After listening to the stars in the night sky, she is inspired to create the first snowflake. It is a gift so moving to the princesses, and especially Luna, that they ask her to make more. Thus, she discovers her true purpose, and learns that even though she is without sight, she can still create something beautiful. well, and it forever transforms the way everyone else looks at the season. On a technical level, Snowdrop shares many of the same strengths and weaknesses as Double Rainboom. They especially feel similar in terms of pacing and animation, but because Snowdrop has a more serious tone, this actually works in its favor. It's okay, and often preferable, to slow down when you've got a story to tell and characters to build up. I also think setting the story in the distant past was a smart move, as it reduces the dependency on familiar characters, though I enjoyed Celestia and Luna's transition between the past and present. The explanation of Winter's purpose and evolution adds to the world-building aspect that appeals to me on the actual show, and I appreciate the symbolic symmetry between Snowdrop and the winter season. In the end, I still wouldn't consider either of these to be required viewing, though it could just be that I've been spoiled by Hot Diggity Demon's .move series. But between these two, it's really no contest. Snowdrop was definitely more effective in accomplishing what it was trying to do. If you want to check that one out, I don't think you'll be disappointed. Meanwhile, Double Rainboom definitely has moments where all of the hard work behind it shines through, and you might want to check it out just to see all of the individual elements that were contributed to the project, as they can be very impressive. Unfortunately, it all never really comes together, and as a whole episode, I still recommend skipping this one.